the idea of moving ahead of what we are here. It's one of the major duties of this roundtable. I agree that there has been really high quality presentations, and I would like to thank all the speakers and the participants for the effort they put in and for the active participation to the sessions, which were quite well sustained by questions and by interaction, which is positive. One simple balance I would like to make at the end of these 3 days of workshop is that there are a lot of potentialities already within our group here. There are 3 running European projects: GroundMed, Alter Energy, and Legend. But there are not the only ones. There are others already concluded or in the phase, in progress, or in the phase of future start. Which means that there is knowledge, there is experience, there are bright ideas, there are multidisciplinary groups, and our research and development for the future requires a multiple knowledge and expertise. Therefore, there's a lot of things already going on. There are networks already established. These projects have a large group of partners. That is already a network. So what was proposing Birth is exactly a straightforward consequence. There are already platforms. We need to increase the critical mass. We need to be more. We need to establish a sort of permanent technical platform on direct uses. And there are here already quite high level knowledge in this. We need to capitalize that. We need to make it valuable and working. Therefore, I would like you to start making and stimulating discussion in terms of what's the cooperation level we would like to reach soon. Practically speaking, we need to set up, starting from the logistical things out of this meeting. If everybody agrees, we make all the presentations available on a website first. That's just already a cohesion. Second, mailing list available to everybody. We would like to ask you to write an extended abstract, 6 to 10 pages of a contribution. We need that something remains out of this.
Yeah, you're right.
A contribution of 4 to 10 pages. And then we, at the end, will try to put a hat on top in order to try to link together this in a more organic way, understandable, and also well presented in order to show that we are not singles. We are a group. We have a potential. We can start assessing, studying, proposing ideas, new projects, groups of different stakeholders for transborder funding schemes, Interreg, whatever, or H2020, which means that that document is would be a starting point.
You're good at that.
Sorry?
You're good at that.
Got yourself a job now, eh?
Sorry, we can add also
Yes.
the PowerPoints in the PDF format.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be
Okay, so if there is somebody who has some doubt or who does not want that certain parts of the presentation could be made public, then please let us know PDFs for, on the website of this workshop. And we will be waiting until end of October for the contribution in order to make a book of proceedings, which will be another milestone of this future technological platform for direct uses. I would like you to intervene and add up more appropriate and other comments and indications and addresses on the future perspectives. Maybe Andrea wants to add up something?
Well, after your enthusiastic, exhaustive introduction, I have little to say. In my opinion, the initial idea and the stimulus of this meeting has found a very satisfactory answer, which is about the potentials in the Peri-Adriatic region of the geothermal energy under every point of view. I'm a researcher, and of course the thematic of the potential development of the technologies carrying ahead, what are the efficiencies of the instruments. The main instrument here is the heat pump, and heat pump also of every possible sort, and that we have heard also this morning. We have heard throughout the 3 days a lot of very interesting statements, but to mention one, this morning you said us that in Germany no nuclear energy is going to be turned off. Coal energy also, and that geothermal energy is going to be sufficient to back up, which is a revolution to the region. I don't know how much the public knows about that. To tell you the truth, when I heard that Germany would have been avoiding the nuclear energy, I was laughing. I said, wait a couple of years and then they will say again, we use nuclear energy. And you also, in the first day, you told us that if we make a balance, including also the nuclear waste, there will be no way to be economical for nuclear power plants. So we have heard not only a lot of statements about the geothermal energy, but it's also a complete overview on the theme. So that was very interesting and very important. Now the next step would be to understand how, and I heard from you also this argument, how to make so that also in the field of the geothermal energy there will be the same sort of support in terms of feed-in that photovoltaic, for instance, has had, and also aeolic, and also whether we can expect that the same sort of support will be given to the geothermal energy or not. So which is the landscape? The impression is that there is a large need of communication, outreach, and this morning I was very impressed by this presentation where there was a short movie on the work done by these young people, all below 20 years, who are producing small plants. This aspect of the hands-on is very important to create the awareness that we need. So I think it was very interesting, and I think also we should go ahead with this sort of meetings.
I will start with the finance, because money is the beginning and the end of everything. Even though it would not be that, poetic, but it's the truth.
No, I fully agree, Bruno. I think that looking at that angle, and if I may take the view from an investor side, if I would look at a project, I would certainly one of the first things I would look at is technological competence. Is that all safe and sound, what the people are telling me here? Is that a proven technology? Is the proof of concept already being established? And I agree to that extent. I think it's extremely important that the young generation, like the project in Labin, certainly with that's the future buying, and people are seeing how it works, and this is really something that needs to be done, even if it's on a small scale. So technological competence, technical technological competence is one thing. The second thing, if I were an investor, is economical viability. Are the economics sound, or do I invest in something where I have no idea how much millions I sink into something which will never provide me any returns? Of course, it's like every other investment, there are risks involved, but every risk can be addressed. It can either be mitigated by certain measures, and in that case, for example, we have heard about insurances, about failures in geothermal drilling, or I have to accept some of the risks. So there are certain measures, but the risk matrix is something which I would definitely like to see if I'm an investor. If I invest some money, let's say for argument's sake 10 million, what are my chances that I'm losing shirts, trousers and everything else, or that I can at least halfway reasonably get out of that with a decent rate of return? And the third thing I would like to see with the eyes of investors is a catalog of opportunities, because not everybody has 10 millions at hand. Maybe somebody has 500,000 or 10,000 or even more. And I think what we have seen over the last 3 days, it's quite clear that we have a maze of opportunities ranging from very small to very large. And that is also something which I would like to see if I'm West Life say, well, technological, economic, and then the size of the investment. And if I have all these three elements ahead of me, that I can make a sound and safe decision, also with regards to my co-investors, I think that's something we need to see, we need to have. And that's not new. There's also in other parts of the industry is something that's been done and that's been made. Whether that's in the wind, in the hydropower, it's not different. If hydropower, for example, yeah, you can have a hydropower plant which requires hundreds of millions of investment, or you have the PPPs like the small power plants, which are maybe somewhere in the tens of thousands and hundred thousands of euros investment. But nonetheless, the principles are always the same, because somebody who has reached into the pocket and put the money on the table wants to know what's happening with them. And that's one key element in that. I mean, we should not get carried away about this is all R&D, it's all research and development. People invest money into something they need to believe in that. And one thing as well, I mean, this is not probably directly connected to that. We should have no illusion. Geothermal is not the savior of the world. There are other energies, there are other forms of energies which are equally important. And we cannot replace one energy with the other overnight. This does not work. And I think Germany is now experiencing exactly that. There was a very brave decision by the government made at that time to exit the nuclear industry. But I think it's now proven it's not that easy. You cannot switch it on and off. This is a long-term investment. Every energy investment is long-term. And it needs a plan and it needs certain stability. And that's, as I'm saying, geothermal is not the only one.
Sure. Are there any comments, requests from the floor on this point? Would you think that there are other points as far as the economy, as far as the way we present our proposal and ideas? For example, marketing. How would you suggest us for the marketing? I mean, you need to sell the products.
Excuse me, Bruno. Another problem before marketing for me, for my point of view, in these 3 days, and is a problem for the investor is the time to transform the project in a real opportunity to work. In Italy, this is a strong problem because the time is not so small, okay? And for the investor, it's the same problem with the technology risk, because if you are not sure that you can start the work and the project, is not a technological problem, it's the time that I have a cost of interest and of the not sure that I have not confidence to be sure that this is a real project. Because without authorization is not a project, is a study of an opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is another question for investors.
Yeah. I think that's one of the risks that need to be managed. It's one of the risks that need to be addressed. Certainly time is one of them. But I'm coming to the acceptance of projects regarding authorities and administrations in a separate issue. I think it's something we need to work on as well.
No.
Okay.
I
Please,
totally
Enrico.
agree on that one, what you said. We would like to add, we need, especially for geothermal projects, we have a long period, 5 years at least, to realize we need a political and legal framework to work on that. I don't know about how it is in Croatia or in Italy. In Germany we have the feed-in tariff, that's nice, and it's 25 cents for geothermal electricity, but we don't have the geothermal project, we don't have Ladrello. That's why electricity is not really the focus point. And I totally agree, geothermal is nice, but not the same over the world. It's a combination of a lot of different renewable energies. And talking about the political framework, I think it's especially important here in the Balkan area, in the Danube area. We have a lot of situations where we don't have the framework, as far as I know. And I'm very happy that in Germany, the very important public utilities, like the Stadtwerke München, that are responsible for electricity and for heat, get more and more used to geothermal and to the heat market. We have the main electricity companies that completely slept during the Energiewende, and now they have the problems with big losses. And Energiewende is a very democratic, it's financed by public funds, by private PPP projects, and it's a complete revolution, not just in the technical, but as well in the financial and in the organization way. I think that's important that we put geothermal projects in this structure, new structure as well. That's true for Germany, I can't speak for the others. There's really a change, and we always see the problems, but if we look back, let's say 15 years, the renewable energy in Germany was nearly maybe 1%. Now we have more than 25, we're talking about electricity, and on a Sunday with some wind, Germany is more than 100% renewable. And in April we had more than 45 gigawatt renewable energy in Germany. And that's developing very, very fast. Of course, there are not a lot of problems in storage and so on, but geothermal is one part of the solution. Maybe a rather small part, but it's a part.
Thanks, Eckhart.
Geothermal energy definitely has the potential to completely cover European energy needs, but to achieve a large-scale market penetration, we need to have transport markets, and this definitely needs public support. And the strategies, of course, will be different from market segment to market segment. So if we go to Adriatic area, for example, if we want to have geothermal electricity, perhaps it might be more wise to wait for the EGS technology to become more market mature. If we want geothermal heat, then we can have centralized projects with deep wells, and there the marketing effort should be developing local markets and also some lobbying with public authorities to get some financial support, because the projects are marginally economical attractive. And if we go to the ground source heat pumps, the thermal heat pumps, because of the availability everywhere, the small scale and the low cost of the technology, of course there is some initial capital costs which not everybody, every homeowner can pay. Perhaps some public support is still needed, but there is definitely payback time. So it is a technology that can be promoted and penetrate the market faster than centralized district heating systems.
One important thing that Eckhart also mentioned is the very rapid growth rate and the very rapid also interest in public administrations. And I think the technological platform should have this feedback. I mean, if we work well enough, then we will be able to involve and have the support, as you said, the political and legal support, to start our applications, actions, and so on. And the more we do, the better the feedback will be in terms of.
I think Dimitri mentioned a key word here, which is lobbying, and I think we need to work on destroying the myth of nuclear PV being more advantageous, also from a commercial point of view, with what I call as a group visibility and acceptance on administration and authorities. Because I think what the geothermal energy industry is lacking is a fair comparison of the energy sources in comparison to geothermal. Because if you would look at full cycle ecological footprint and economics on nuclear and photovoltaic, not so much on wind, but for both these nuclear and photovoltaics, you would see a totally different picture on that. Because if you would include the dismantling of nuclear plants and the storage of a safe storage, which is absolutely impossible, a safe storage of spent fuels on the nuclear industry, you would immediately discard nuclear industry as competitive anywhere. Aside from the fact that there is no safe storage of spent fuels. It just isn't and never will be, as we have in the meantime experienced. And also on photovoltaic, I think if you also would include the energy which is necessary to produce photovoltaic panels, and also don't forget the discard at the end of that, because there are certain elements in there which are not that easily discarded, and that costs a lot of money as well. If you would include all that, then you would have a fair comparison to geothermal. And also it's been mentioned already, the harmonization of the feed-in tariffs. Why is photovoltaic treated with preference against other feed-ins? There's no reason why that happens.
Because there's a stronger lobby.
Well, this is exactly the point. It's a stronger lobby, and that's why I'm saying we are at the moment, we are a little bit scattered in terms of our voice. We do not speak with one voice, like for example the nuclear industry in France does. I mean, they have an extremely strong voice there. And they essentially killed the fracturing of shale gas, or killed the fracturing in essence in France. They were scared shitless, pardon the language here, but they were scared about the potential of fracturing in all of a sudden wedging into their revenues. And that's exactly what is missing on the geothermal side. I think we need to have the strong visibility and a unique voice vis-a-vis the authorities and vis-a-vis the governments. And that's not only in single countries, that should be EU-wide or even globally.
I think that it is also important to explain to the community what is
Sure.
geothermal.
Yeah.
People doesn't know.
Yeah.
They say,
Yeah,
do
absolutely.
geothermal. What it is geothermal? I mean, they have the idea of
That's why I said I grouped that into visibility
Yeah.
and acceptance,
the-
and
the
that's
people,
everywhere.
but they don't have an idea. I think
Yeah.
also the fracking is confusing.
Yeah, sure.
So the geothermal fracking is not the same as the fracking for shale gas. So there was some explanation about this by the UG, Union of Geothermal. This is interesting, something which has to be, I think it's important to explain to people. Also, there is a plan to present the idea.
Yeah.
Yes, I think geothermal energy suffers from several, biases. I would say first, geothermal is not structured as an industry. The only industry which is dedicated, say 90% to geothermal is ORVAS, the ORC turbine manufacturer. They have also assets, they invest in acquiring fields in the US, in Nevada, and in California as well. So of course we suffer from that. We are wholly dependent for the products, for the services from the oil industry. It's only, I don't criticize this. But now we have reached a third breakthrough with the pumps. For instance, the downhole electro-submersible pumps, ESPs in our jargon, now are capable of coping with temperatures as high as 220 degrees. And the 300 degree sea line will be matched in, say, it's a matter of years, okay? This is because of the demand of the oil industry. Now, the new reserves are very deep-seated in the Gulf of Mexico, with high temperatures, high pressures. But promising place. So, and the fact that these pumps will be made available for our industry, in brackets, is that we could produce steam deposits without smashing it. That's a simple breakthrough. You can keep the fluid under pressure, the surface, and then pipe it to the turbine. No problem. So, we are dependent on many services. We will have downhole motors capable of operating at 250 degrees. So we could match the targets, which are very difficult to assess, especially in volcanotectonic, in petrographic rocks, hard rocks. That would be also a breakthrough. So the technology is there. The challenges are met. I've been working for some time. I worked for one in the petroleum industry. I got bored a bit by it. And in geothermal, it was very exciting because of the challenges. For instance, in the Paris Basin, in the heart of the city, you saw, I showed a slide where we were drilling on the River Seine, on Vacuum Seine, and the mud pit was above, okay? And we have blowouts, They are not dangerous blowouts because we don't have high pressures, we have high flows, okay, and a bit of toxic gases. But all this is manageable. You see, it is done, and people who see that, they are astonished. You see, my God, how have you done that? We have done that because we had a thorough state involvement, whatever with the politics, left versus right. So it is another aspect. Geothermal cannot really take off the ground if it's not. It doesn't benefit from public subsidies. Another aspect which is called in the development of geothermal energy is the fact that you have one operator per well, I would say, to summarize, to vulgarize, okay? In the Paris Basin, we have 50 different heating doublets or triplets, which we operated by, I would say, 20 or 25 operators, you see? So you don't have a concentrated industry. You can't benefit from banking loans. But now there's a trend. I've noticed that, because of my experience, my age also. That's the sad privilege of age. I'm consulting, and recently I've noticed that in France, thanks to the feed-in tariff, we have American investors putting money on the Molasse Basin. Now it's on standby because there's no decision taken for the future of the feed-in tariff. But I see in Alsace that there is a strong group who has invested massively. It's a matter of 100 or 150 million euros. And they have created a task force with 15 talented, young engineers. And they benefit from a feed-in tariff of 20 euros per megawatt hour net, not gross, like in Germany it's gross, in France it's net. Plus a bonus if you have combined heat and power, if you recover heat from the condenser and so on, and which can bring the megawatt feed-in tariff up to 25, 28. You see, so this is absolutely a mandatory incentive. You see, so public support, feed-in tariff, and which of course will attract investors. You see, and the banking business behind. So you will have a critical mass, and there you will build an industry. Now the other problem is the reserve. The reserve is massive. You know, it is a vast dormant energy from a heat in place down to, say, the economic limit, which is 7 kilometers. But I mean, from that heat in place, which is proven more or less, to match the recoverable reserve to the demand, I mean, it's I don't know, it's several orders of magnitudes lower, okay? So we suffer also from this. We suffer from the fact that we cannot transport it, it's very local. It is a benefit that it's a local energy in order to import it, but it is also a disadvantage. You can't concentrate large groups, okay? And it is very sensitive to politics, okay?
That's the other point.
See, I've been working in geothermal, it's a very emotional domain. I like emotions, you know. I'm not an artist, but I love
That's
it.
why you are
But
in geothermal for since 40 years.
You bet, I'm a real bullshitter, you know.
I think, Pierre, you also mentioned something interesting, that's the development in the oil and gas industries, and we just dwell a little bit on that as well. It's not only that that there is a benefit from high temperature application uses, which the geothermal industry can benefit from. I think that we should also, and I would be very happy to bridge that as a petroleum engineer on the geothermal side. I think we should not see the oil and gas industry as a competitor, but as a collaborator. Because we are doing exactly the same thing, and sometimes the oil and gas industry say, oh shit, I drilled 4,000 meters and it's a failure because it's water. Well, lo and behold, it's success for the geothermal industry. So all the information we can gather from the seismic, from drilling boreholes, from the service industry, of course, is a bit of a downside because the oil industry pays top wages for services. But let's see whether we can share these things one way or the other. So that's why I do believe, and to some extent there was some hope that the oil industry would also have a part of their activities geothermal on their menus. Most companies have abolished that, unfortunately due to the unfortunate events which were coming with the deep drilling geothermal activities, but I think that's something that needs to be rekindled, but with a professional approach, and not with a cowboy approach sometimes like in the Rhine Valley we have seen. I mean, if oil companies see something like that, they back off and say, well, thank you very much, we don't need that reputation. It's difficult enough as it is, but I think there's a lot of benefit to be taken from cooperating with it.
Would you comment, Bert, the question that the shallow geothermal applications have a lot lower risk for direct uses than the very deep ones where you...
And also heat pump, you can mine the heat in place.
Sure.
Wherever you have a power source for the condenser, and you have, of course, it is populated. So I mean, this is the enormous, this is an enormous reserve. But I mean, it is very difficult to develop. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. But the trend is still rising.
It's still rising up. Jörg, you were also...
Yes, I would like to maybe accentuate also this question that is, from my point of view, also very important. And this, as we mentioned now, that geothermal energy is only one of the sources and one of the renewables. So it's not competing, in fact, but so something
need to integrate.
Yes. So for this reason, I think that it's very important that we recognize the areas where is the highest potential for the geothermal and to use these areas. So, but we should recognize these areas from the community level. So the community should recognize this on its own territory, on its own spatial plans, to use those areas, like we saw on this Milano example. This is very high potential, and also using at the same time drinking water. So this is very, very particular case, and I think that there are a lot of particular cases.
Yeah, I'm sure that integrating
Yes.
resources could help a lot geothermal development.
Yeah.
Because you need waste to energy, then you couple that like in Ferrara integrated system. It helps the municipality to solve the waste to energy problem, recovers back energy, integrates with geothermal, hydrothermal, industrial heat, and whatever else, and then helps.
I think what you mentioned, Jörg, is also, you said there's a lot of opportunities, and I think this is exactly where we should take away from this meeting, is where we as a geothermal industry should really work on, is what I would call a catalog of opportunities, like really meticulously laying down where are the opportunities, how large are they, what are the risks, because we've heard a lot of things like a motley collection of a little bit here, a little bit there. But if we would have a catalog of opportunities that we say, well, here it is, this is a map of Europe, and here are the opportunities. I think that would also help to decide for an investor as to where they would like to go, where they would see the least risk, and where they would see the best returns on their investment. And I think also, Pierre mentioned it, it sometimes geothermal, of course, is not movable, it's not transportable, it's bound to where it is. And I think that's certainly a bit of a downside to that. Yes, we have to live with that, we cannot change that. And I would just like to raise a silly question, how many more spas does the world need?
That's a good question.
It's really, it says to me, it's like, well, there's an opportunity here, we should make a spa out of them. Well, for God's sake, I mean, we already have a few of those, so it's...
Yes, but the energy planners are only, in majority, they are electrical engineers, you see? So they only see energy as power, whereas heat shares the same part of the cake.
And that's what I'm saying, and the catalog of opportunities, that's something
But they are insensitive to
I'd
that.
like to see.
I know French CDF, I can tell you.
Becker, you wanted to
No way.
integrate
I would like to add another aspect. We have a lot of know-how here assembled from universities and research institutions all over Europe. I think now with the Horizon 2020 program, we have a big chance on the European level to cooperate with the companies, and I'm very happy that you built up this platform here to intensify the discussions with the universities and with the companies. I think that's a perfect workshop to improve our knowledge about geothermal and about renewable energies. I think we should use this chance here to intensify communication. As a university, we have a special responsibility, and I think we have the chance to change thinking. We did that in the last 20 years on waste and everything, and now make our students and maybe even the pupils sensible about renewable energies and heat and everything. The next 10 or 20 years, there will be a lot of more development. We take our responsibility as universities and professors. I think it's a big chance with Horizon 2020.
That's a good point.
I think that one point is to have in mind, but to have in mind also the overall view of the underground. So there are geothermal, maybe there is reinjection wells, there is oil and gas, there is drinkable water. So that's the context in which all the underground resource or environment is used. This is something which can be, which should be taken into consideration in an area. We have different examples.
Please, Pierre.
Yes, when I speak of the energy planners are dominantly electrical engineers, this has an impact because when we come with our projections in the World Energy Conference, for instance, And we can say hardly that we will match 1% of the demand, you know, with what is realistically, which can be realistically developed. Now we have seen that the potential for geopower from conventional hydrothermal sources worldwide is estimated at 150,000 megawatt. That's ridiculous. You know, it can cover the needs of France, hardly, you see. So when you come with these figures, they are polite, they're well educated, well dressed, they smile. You say, this is not serious. If you come and say, I can bring 5%, 10%, then you are considered seriously by the planners. Even the United Nations, all these institutional outfits, you see? So I'm thinking now, and I come back to what has been mentioned, the shale gas. In fact, it is source rock hydrocarbons. And of course, there was a great polemic around this, but I mean, in the United States, it has represented an energy breakthrough which has a considerable impact. When we are speaking of EGS, we can say that possibly one day, if we regard what are the most favorable EGS settings which have been already appraised more or less, then we can hope that one day, it's not necessarily wishful thinking, that we will be able to manage to tackle these challenges, you see, and say that we will have a mining scheme, a technology which will allow us to increase by one order of magnitude the reserve from hydrothermal conventional settings, you see. In which case, of course, if you pass the 1 million mark, and that was attempted by Tesla and MIT in those days in the US, he came with that wonderful connected porosity, you know, figures. And of course, would we be touching this realistically? Then we would be regarded seriously, you know, as a serious contributor to planners. See?
Yeah, and that actually is a good lead to the third pillar, which I had. So I had initially visibility acceptance and a catalogue of opportunities, realistic assessment, valuation of reserves and resources. And the third one is the technological process, and I think that's, I have mentioned it various times in my presentation, I think that's really where the R&D institutes are called on, to improve, to increase the electrical efficiency, presently 12%, which is really ranking lowest of all the electrical energy production devices we have. That's the one thing. Nanotechnology could be one thing. Well, heat transfer is something where a lot of improvements can be made. I'm not a process engineer, but I think that's an area where a lot of improvement can be done. And if you would only bring, I mean, here an example, photovoltaic. Initially they were kind of hovering around the 1-digit efficiency marks. In the meantime, we're 16, 17, 18% electrical efficiency with photovoltaic. This does not come without investment, that's clear, but I think that, like on photovoltaic, I think there's also something that can be done on the geothermal side for the efficiency. And the last thing here on technological progress, and that's again not only applicable for geothermal, is that the, I call it intelligent energy networks, yeah? It goes away from the monolithic blocks, from the huge gigawatts and megawatt power generation, and then star-like distribution of that. It's like an interlinked network of small power producers that they can balance the power requirements off, but it needs a totally different approach. It's not something where you can work like in the past times. It's a different way, but I think the technology is already there, at least theoretically, to control and to manage these things. But it's a way of a different thinking out of the box, that the small power producers can all be interlinked in a way to provide the same energy supply security like these monolithic blocks.
I just would like to make a comment on efficiency. The efficiency in geothermal is low because the temperature is low, and efficiency is limited by thermodynamics, and existing hardware is pushing technology to its limits, so you can't expect much by improving.
You cannot overcome physics here.
No, but what you can do is to increase the temperature. In order to increase the temperature, you have to go deeper and develop technology to exploit supercritical resources and even magma. Technology is available to reach even magma. For example, yes, but of course this needs to be commercialized somehow and demonstrated. For example, 30 years ago, when a drilling rig hit magma, then there was a blowout, a small volcano, and everybody died. But recently I have heard that both in Iceland and Hawaii, they have drilling rigs drilling to magma and just announced it, which means that technology can do miracles today.
But again, here you cannot trick physics. I mean, iron also melts at a certain temperature. It's just
For example, one way in steel making, not just water-cooled iron.
Magma, the problem is the permeability.
Yeah.
And the acid. The acid of magma pH2, I mean, it's, you know, it's a real challenge. I think but there are cycles, the total flow cycle. Thermal diameter, it's obvious. You can recover if you expand in an impulse turbine. In the nozzle, you expand, you know, you are two-phase, you can recover the hydraulics. It is complicated. When I was with the EC in charge of the program, I was captivated by this issue and we passed a contract, but we didn't have good efficiency. They used a pelted wheel, which was not adapted for that. And
also, what's about drilling?
And the next is the cold source. If you have a cycle in Alaska with 5 degrees, then with 70 degrees you can produce 1 megawatt.
Sure.
Yeah. In these days, we've not spoken so much of the cascade, but when it reach the good temperature to use for space heating this cascade.
Instead of 3
so
stages.
in this case, instead to put in the river this energy, thermal energy, you can use this energy to the buildings.
And you can combine ORC with flash.
And you have an environment convenience. And you can have the occasion to use this thermal heat, free of charge thermal heat.
There could be a sort of regulation that maybe certain cities or regions could start think of about the integration and recovery of the heat losses from industries that are not economically now considered, just because there are different owners, different regulations, and they don't care, they throw it away. And there are no
One thing is refineries. If you see refineries for the cooling towers and the huge water pumps that go off there, I mean, there must be a lot of energy, but of course, again, here as an investor, I say, well, what's in for me?
Yeah.
Does it work? Is it economic? Technically, it may be feasible, but is it economically feasible?
Yeah, I would like to draw your attention on the opportunity of this bridging between oil industry and geothermal applications. Since several drill holes are not productive, in several countries there is the mining law that obliges you to close a mineral in some places.
That's not correct. Only if it's not used. Only if it's not used in any way, and that does not exclude the geothermal use. So I would even say the oil and gas industry would love you if you say you take away from them the liability to abandon the work, because that also costs money. You could see to abandon all that. They would say, well, here you have my borehole, be happy with it. And the only thing is you have to then take the liabilities of that. But in essence, there is no reason, there is no, to my knowledge, there is no law in place which would forbid the petroleum industry to transfer the ownership of a well to geothermal activity. There's no such case. The only thing they have to prove that you as a company are capable to deal with these things, that you have someone who understands the issues there, but that's really all. I mean, it's not rocket science to do that.
And the law is not flexible. We had a case in the Netherlands, and the operator was okay. He had a dry well, a gas well,
Yeah.
and so we spotted the wells in the concession limits, and SODM, the mining authorities, say no way you can do that.
And
And
what was
we
the
asked
reason
them
for-
why.
what was the
The
reason?
operator is okay. No, it's against the regulations. So bureaucracy is a real obstacle sometimes. Lack
That
of
happened
flexibility.
in Italy too.
But I mean, in the
Yeah,
oil
they say-
industry, it is well structured because you have majors, you have medium-sized independents, and you have small-sized independents. I've seen in France, the ownership of the field has changed 3 times. It was Exxon with Esso, then it's with Vermillon, and Vermillon gave it to Geothermal. See? 3 levels. So I mean, they recover the resource. When it's non-economic for a major, it handed it over to a
But what are the criteria between a minor company like Geothermal compared to a geothermal entity? I mean, what are the criteria, what are the requirements?
Well, it's an interesting question because Geothermal has 2 concessions in geothermal.
Yeah. So
It's a unique example.
This is just something where, again, I think one needs to work on the authority level and establishing a certain trust that even as a small entity, as a small enterprise, you're perfectly capable to deal with it.
Yeah, you're right.
So you have to prepare it by time. If you go to the company, maybe in one country, you
Yeah.
talk before,
Well, there could
really
be,
wells,
there could be a standing agreement with oil and gas companies and saying, well, you drill a hole somewhere and you have a failure, please let us know, and we will have a look at it, whether we can use it for other
in
purposes.
advance.
Absolutely possible. And as I said, they would love you for that, because abandoning a 3,500 meter hole probably costs somewhere in the range of €750,000 to €1 million. Aside from the other liabilities, they are then able to shoulder off.
I think an important point also is the applications of the shallow heat exchangers, either vertical, the ones that you are experiencing from one spot,
I was
80,
amazed by that.
and the basket ones.
The imagination.
That's something that
I
needs
was
to be disseminated. It needs to be,
And this makes geothermal energy very popular, you see.
yeah.
You know,
That's
the region, the
Sure.
municipality,
That's
town
a means
authorities,
of making,
it
you
is
know,
a great impetus.
support.
Yeah.
out
agree
of
with
that.
I follow.
And I think it's something that we should take care of more carefully, because it's a media penetration,
Yeah.
using simple, efficient, cost-effective, and cheap. We see
Yes.
very cheap. So that is important.
As I showed in my presentation,
Yeah.
use that for directly cooling purposes, for example.
Yeah.
It's important that they
And people are acquainted with these technologies, they are much better suited to transport that idea to some other place.
Okay, it's 15 not to 7.
Any other views from the floor?
So do we need to?
Anything? I think we all look a little bit exhausted now.
Starting at 45, now it's 6:45.
So one technical quick question to the participants to the European projects already running. Would you think that, and would you let us use all the participant emails to put them all in this technological platform for direct uses? Do you think we are allowed to do that? Should we ask somebody for? No, you think?
the logos of the project.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
The Alter Energy and also the Legend partners.
Definitely.
It's great from our point of view.
Is it?
Yes, it's great.
Basically,
Okay.
also we should add the stance of the European Union.
Is a leadership.
It's basically advisable to do it from our point of view at least.
Okay, we will try to do that.
Another important, for me, another important opportunity is to have the possibility to elaborate the different resources in the different territory that we have, and to put in this platform the opportunity that the different technology can create. And I have think that a very most important relation in this workshop is the possibility to create value with the organization about the integration of technology. Because when you make a big well, yes, you have also the result of thermal energy. That you use one part of this for electricity, but you can create value also for the same territory in English. And the value is when you respond for the rispondere alle esigenze del territorio. Ok. No, mi secca per gli altri. Il problema è rispondere a un'esigenza del territorio prima, cioè una questione di etica di impresa, per cui io riconosco il bisogno di un territorio e rispondo a un bisogno che c'è, poi posso integrare soluzioni. Ma se io vado là per dire io ho una cosa bella da fare, la faccio per me, io trago profitto e il territorio è il tuo, funziona male.
Also the needing of the territory.
Yes, this is the best star in the sky. Then you can integrate solution and create opportunity for different work.
In France, you are obliged. It is called enquête publique, the public inquiry. So, but it is used by the administration to speed up the process and avoid any question, any undue question.
No, I can.
In fact, it could be reciprocated and being an information for the public and to see what are the other possible routes which could emanate from that project.
Okay, for me the real reach of this convention, of this meeting, is the possibility to contribute in relation with the different level of problems that the Croatia, Slovenia, Trieste, Italia, French, and that are, because the resources are of the territory, and we have to ask to answer how. What do you have this reach? What do you want about this, and how we all together can.
It's enough.
Desalination.
New desalination, yes. Thermal desalination is one of the applications of low enthalpy geothermal energy.
It will become very important in the near future because water it's a big problem.
It's already
It is a big
Maybe
problem.
also on the island,
What
not
is
to
the
be
water?
Yeah, it is. But I appreciate Vern's hint about the overlapping of the geothermal atlas map with the request, demand, and so on. It's not that easy, and it's also a scale effect. Okay, it requires input, work, and time, and it's not doing by itself. It requires energy and resources. If we want to point to this catalog of opportunities and technologies, that's a huge amount of work to do.
It is, yes.
It's not something that we do tomorrow for next week.
I want
for
the
any-
email with the face, with the photo of the face, because for another way it's very difficult to know.
So, we are
I
starting.
write my email.
If we agree to start with this technology platform, there's a lot of work, and we need contribution. We need people to work on. We need input. We need connections. We need meetings, not necessarily physical meetings. Even though if we come back here again, probably none of you will complain. But we need input, and we will try to summarize the results of this meeting, and I will ask the boss of the Fondazione Internazionale Trieste to say something on the feasibility of this, because he has the responsibility, you know, to bring together different research institutions in the Trieste area, and then could be a good seed, a good start. But I cannot decide for that, so I ask his advice.
You are attributing too much more than importance. All we did was to give support, and we, as far as we can, in the reach of our possibility, we are still ready to support these and other aspects. The initial stimulus was really this one, the one which we in the end have been discussing here, which is what are the real opportunities of geothermal. Of course, deep drilling, but shallow is more near to our needs and to our region, and then the opportunity which comes across companies, research institutions, especially inside of the European projectuality ACE 2020. So we know that to be effective towards these projects, we need to have platforms, and that was the origin of the whole thing. And I think we have here had, first of all, an exchange of information which has been as dense as possible, couldn't be more exhaustive. I'm not a specialist, I maybe become. But my point was to see whether there was an opportunity to be developed, which of course we are active in the region freely Venezia Giulia, so it should have been something for our region, for the companies, for the university, and for the people, as you properly point out, and you properly point out. So, of course, I think we have all the tools to do what is needed. Okay, now we have the tools, and we need the people which hammers. So it's not an easy job, but we will do what we can. Of course, it's you are the university. We can give support to the institutions which are available to do something. But of course, the most important part comes from the intention.
So the ball comes back to me again.
As usual.
But as far as bringing the results of this meeting to the optimal way to be exploited, we will certainly do it with certain people, but we would like, of course.
Thank you for that support.
I guess we go to a closure,
Yeah.
and I thank you all again to be here and to be resistant till the last minute of this workshop, and have a nice trip back and enjoy a few more days if you can.
Will do. Thank you very much.